What's up, guys? I got a really fun video to make today. I know I talked before about the biggest mistake I'd ever made with a woman in dating and I went out like a simp. This is kind of the same, but in business, and you're talking about way bigger numbers. It was kind of crazy, stressful at the time, but what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I can look back on it now and laugh, like, somewhat. Obviously, I'd rather have the money, but like, it made me a better person. It made me understand human nature to a T, like, these are the things that shaped me. These are the things that will shape you guys if they happen, but hopefully, like, you can learn from my experiences and you don't make the same things. You don't get over trusting with people. Look, before I get into the video, subscribe to my channel, thumbs up the video, follow me on IG, James Lake Show. I got receipts. I'm not like these business coaches who talk a big game and they got nothing to back it. Right, so without further ado, the biggest mistake I've ever made in business. So I'll set the stage. It's 2013. I'm doing real well. And this kid sets up shop to copy me, a school friend. He'd previously been a very close friend. He sets up shop and he'd been asking my advice on how to sell retail. At the time, we were retail. I'm still in the same business, but we changed to wholesale now. We're a distribution business. But at the time, it was retail. And he asked my advice, which I had no problem with giving a friend advice, which, by the way, guys, I can go into this in another video, but do not give your advice for free because most people are not your friend. They'll turn their fucking back on you and they'll snake you. Trust me, you're going to learn a lot from this story. So I give my advice for free. And then lo and behold, the similar products to what I'm selling start coming up onto the marketplace. So I should have welcomed the competition, but I got up in my emotions about it, and I was pissed off. But anyway, it is what it is. We started then trying to take the spots for those products. And like, it was just turned into a competition with friends, which should have never done. Like, that's not how friends should work, but it is what it is. Like, anyway, the kid in question then comes to me because his relationship with his business partners weren't working. He wanted more finance. He saw that we were doing real well. The company was making astronomical money for a retail company. Like, we were doing very well. I think at one point we were one of the most profitable companies trading on Amazon UK. Like, it was crazy. It was big money, especially for a 23-year-old. It went to my head. I thought it was better than what it was. Anyway, that's a different story, another story. So I say to him, look, stop trying to trash our listings, stop trying to copy our products, and you focus on this area of the business, and I'll back you. So that's where we went from there. And we backed him. And in the first 3 months, we made 90 grand net profit, pounds. So what's that, like $130,000? And I'm not going to use any names here, by the way. It's just my experience. And like, you could call them hypotheticals or whatever you want to call them, but I'm just talking about this is how it went down. Anyway, I thought that we were super smart. I thought we were smarter than what we were. I was in business with another guy at the time who was in my business. And we always kind of locked horns a little bit. It just was what it was. Sometimes you get these like two character types that don't match. I'm pretty like flamboyant and out there, and I got a different way of leading business to what he did. He's a lot more clinical, and that was just like a mismatch of characters. We didn't work out. So anyway, he departs the business, and then I have me running my company, and next door I have this other guy who was my best friend at school running his company. Now, his company was making some money, but it wasn't making the same kind of money my company was making. But I wanted someone who could still keep up with me and go and do these trips and do all this kind of stuff like my old business partner was. Anyway, I make the grave error and not thinking things clearly right at the time, and not thinking that people could be as weak mentally as he was. I take him to Vegas and I reignite. This is where I take accountability, guys. I should have never invited the kid to Vegas. We went to the Consumer Electronics Show. Anyway, he starts gambling. His gambling problem gets out of control like it had been previously. He'd been a terrible gambler back in the day, and I was very aware of this. So like, I don't know why on earth I thought it was a good idea to take him to Vegas. And on top of that, I had a situation with the fact that he was trying to keep his lifestyle up with mine, and there was just a mismatch. His income wasn't the same. So not only was he pissing a lot of money up gambling, he was also trying to keep up with me, and it led him down a dark path. Now, what would happen is over the next year, he did okay. The profits from the first 3 months went to his head, I think, and he took his foot off the gas and everything started to go down. His best ever quarter was the first quarter. He then would give us daily or like weekly bank reports of how much cash was in the bank. And I would just take his word for it because he was my friend, like I didn't think anything of it. I thought that, why would he lie? Why would anyone lie? I think that you'd be honest. But anyway, That's not how it entailed. And what happens is one day, my supplier, he calls me up and says, look, I know you're not guaranteeing his debts, but he hasn't paid me. And I said, that's crazy. He hasn't paid you. He's got a lot of money in the bank. And he goes, he hasn't paid. And my business partner, this guy who was running this separate business, was away and he'd gone on a holiday with his family and he'd neglected his business. Unfortunately, guys, if you're in business, you've got to be on call at all points. I try and call him, no answer. So I say, okay, to my supplier. I say, I'm sure he's fine. I'll pay the debt. I think it was $80,000. So about £50,000 at the exchange rate at the time, maybe £55,000. I paid that debt to keep the goods coming in because we had customers screaming saying they needed the goods. Anyway, he comes back, we delve into the bank account, and it transpires that all of the numbers that he said was in the bank wasn't in the bank. He'd been taking out as much as $2,000 a week, going to William Hill casinos, or what do you call it, like slot machines, and throwing money down the drain. Cost people jobs in doing so. So amongst all of this, my company had lent the other company, which is like a sister company. It was also associated with us, so I couldn't have it tarnish our reputation. We lent it £100,000. And along with the fact that my company had lent his company £100,000, about $140,000 in that era, he then had been taking money out of the company. And I think he'd taken between 50 and 70 grand over the course of 6 months in cash out of the company. And I had to settle his debt. He bankrupted the business. It was a separate business. My business clung on by the skin of its teeth. It was very tough. And what was even more annoying at the time is because he's lost everything at this point. He's lost his house. Everything's fallen apart for him. He's had to sell his car, sell anything. I think people want to love the victim. So I had even like my school friends and everyone are like, oh, they're on his side. And I thought, you know what? I don't want to get involved. I can't even bother to bite. Like, if you want to feel sorry for the guy who's cost people 10 jobs, well, that is up to you. But I started to see true colors in different people then at that point. Anyway, he then goes to ground. He hides. I remember he was saying some real hurtful things about me, like saying ratty things about me. Like I said, I used to use drugs, and he was saying like, James is a druggy piece of shit. He doesn't know what he's got going on. But, well, I mean, you do the math now. Like I think I turned out all right, but I'm not so sure about him. Last I heard, he was hiding away like a little rat. But the fact of the matter is, people were siding with the victim because it's easy to think that the victim had done nothing wrong. I had this divide of like friends. It was really, really tough. I was fighting for my life to try and keep the business alive. My business, the business I'd started at age 20. And I'm now like 24, 25, and it's nearly getting taken down because of this kid's gambling addiction. I remember one time I was in Vegas with him, and he was at the table, and I think he was betting like $500 a number or something stupid. And I'm not a big gambler. I said, look, I'm going upstairs. Anyway, so he comes up and then he knocks on my door and he threw $15,000 at me and says, you should have stayed at the table. And I remember thinking, I'm not impressed by this. Like, I remember thinking, you have to be gambling like a jackass for that to even happen. Anyway, he goes out drunk that night, buys a Rolex in Caesar's Palace. I think 2 weeks later, he's already had to sell it. He was telling me he had X amount in the bank and he was buying first class flights, and it turned out he had nothing in the bank. He nearly stiffed my supplier, and my supplier was going to be illiquid. They were unavailable to serve my business because they destroyed his cash flow. It was crazy. It was a really, really crazy time. And I think that you had this little snake who wants to try and believe that at first he was borrowing the money. So that's how he justified it. Like, I always intended to pay it back. And then it was, well, I'm owed the money because I'm the one who works full time on this business. However, we lent the money, We lent the money to start up. I lent him a further £100,000 to try and keep the business afloat because I didn't realize he was taking cash out of the business. I settled his debts. Then later down the line, what happens is if you're a director of a limited company in the UK and funds have been taken out of the business illegally, then all of the directors are culpable, regardless of it being one director that had done it. So anyway, he's hidden away. No one knows where he is. He also has no assets to his name. So then the liquidators come to sue us on behalf of the creditors, which was backwards because we were the biggest creditor. And we got sued for a further £110,000. So what, like $150,000 or $140,000. It was crazy, guys. And do you know what it all came back to? It came back to me being way too trusting. And the most ratty thing about it is, instead of putting his shoulders back and saying like, look, I made a mistake. My gambling errors got to the back of me. I should have never done this. He hid away and started like stirring shit and spreading stuff about me. And unrelated to business, by the way, guys, just to try and just stir my name. Really, really piece of shit move. Said a lot about the character. And I saw a lot of different people take sides with him when they didn't really want to hear my side of the story. Because I think what happens is if someone does well, and I'd done well, and I was still doing well at that point, even though we were fighting for our lives because cash was down, you have a situation where they want to believe that, oh, if you've got money, you've done it unfairly. Nah. Like, I got business partners now who have been in business for like 10 years nearly, and it's all good, all perfect. But it's just nice. I think people have this like, it's like a jealous narrative to think like, oh yeah, but he only got it because of this. No. When we look at the facts, I lent it £100,000. He took £70,000 out of the business in cash, and I had to settle his supplier debts so that I could continue my supply chain. Nearly broke us, guys. In 2016, and this is what I'm saying, I was weak-minded. It led to me cruxing all this shit on drugs. I became the worst I've been on drugs and booze, and I was just being a fucking idiot. Whereas now, if that kind of stuff happened now, it wouldn't happen because I'm I wouldn't take his word for it on the bank. I'd want to cross-check. If my investment's there, if my money's up there, I'll be checking. I would not just say because this guy's a friend, I'm just accepting that. I'd want, if I'm there, if my name is on the line, I'm making sure that I'm cross-checking this stuff. Because not many people have your best interest, guys. Yeah, crazy time. And yeah, like I said, I didn't know how to deal with it at the time. I ended up just turning to drugs. And what happened was around 2017, I just decided on one day to stop taking it all. And I've been abusing drugs. I stopped taking it all. And then I just decided I'm just trying to get better daily. And we dug our way out of a hole. And by 2018, we are making money again. We kind of put behind us that I had this mindset, and I changed my mindset. Instead of looking like, fuck, we lost all this, I thought, right, it can either be a lot or a little. It's a lot if I focus on it and I don't focus on moving forward, but it's a little if I focus on moving forward. It is what it is. You can't fucking dwell on it. You've got to push forward. Don't let these people ruin everything that you've created, what you put your life and soul into it. Because ultimately, he liked his business because it paid him money. I like my business because if you cut me, I bleed my business. It's not about the money. I love my business. It's my whole reason for being. Without it, I'll be lost. And he is in a situation where it was all just about the money. So when the money dried up, instead of putting the business first, he puts himself first and he starts taking money out of the company. Absolute disgrace. Rat. Not a man. And I wasn't a man at the time either. I was emotional. Didn't understand how to fucking deal with it. Took a load of drugs. But look, guys, we shape up. It made me what I am today. I can't be rock now. And I'd never make those same mistakes today. And then you learn out who your real friends are too. It's all part and parcel. You realize who's the jealous ones, who's not. And I had a few guys really stick with me. Really close friends. And yeah, it's what it is, guys. But look, I hope you guys can learn from it. Don't trust people blindly. Human nature will always prevail. If they're an addict, they'll always be an addict. And what on earth was I thinking, taking the kid to fucking Vegas? I reignited a gambling habit, which had seen him lose all of his personal finances at like 21 or something. But yeah, more fool me, eh? But I live and learn, and it is what it is. But anyway, guys, I will catch up with you tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, and follow me on IG, James Lake Show.